All right, welcome back to BuffaloPlus.com and on the Buffalo Plus YouTube channel. I'm now joined by a recurring guest on the Buffalo Plus YouTube channel. One of the best guys I can think you can talk about with football, Warren Sharp from Sharp Football Analysis. Follow him on Twitter at Sharp Football. He's got a book out, Sharp Football 2021. You can download the PDF right now on at sharpfootballanalysis.com. Great stuff. I appreciate you coming on and just talking some football with me, man.
Yeah, love it. I'm so happy that the season is underway. You know, we got the teams returning to camp, and we're going to start to watch these guys practice. And no better time, especially after what happened last year with the offseason, to see everybody's camps open up like this, and you guys being able to report live from them. It's going to be fun. And
so I remember I was talking before last year, Josh Allen was still kind of this question mark that you know, he had progressed linearly, but that's not always the case. Like, not every quarterback just keeps getting better and better progressively each year in steps. Where did you see the biggest, maybe, you being the analytics guy, where did you see the biggest jumps, and where does he still have room to improve if fans are looking forward to a step in 2021?
Well, we know that he did a lot of work in the offseason with Jordan Palmer and got improved with some of his mechanics, and some of the accuracy things were aided by some of those mechanic improvements. But what also happened was a lot of hands-on work with Brian Daboll to adjust and modify this offense to make it more QB friendly and to make things easier on the quarterback. I mean, they played a league average type schedule in terms of the strength of schedule of their opponents and pass defenses, but Josh Allen made just a light year improvement in everything that he was doing. Now, we know that Brian Daboll, he improved and increased rather his usage of 10 personnel. I think there was like 5 or 6 snaps of 10 personnel the prior year. They used so much 10 personnel last year in 2020, increased play action, increased pre-snap motion, tried to do a lot of things that are going to make life easier for the quarterback when he throws the ball, give the defense a little bit more conflict, make things a little bit easier for that quarterback to read. And he did that. And Josh Allen, through the mechanics improvements and through things that Brian Daboll, just jumped night and day versus what he was in 2019. The interesting part, though, and I break it down in the book, though, is even without those things, even when Josh Allen, there's no pre-snap motion, there's no play action, he's just taking a standard drop, he was significantly better. So not only did the things Daboll added to the offense improve the output, but even without those things, we saw just so much improvement from Josh Allen that you can't really put a finger on one thing like, oh, he was so much better on third downs, or he was so much better on first downs, or he was so much better, in play action or throwing to the perimeter. Like, it was just everywhere. There was constant, consistent improvement.
Where is some place maybe that you can still see, like I know he jumped up so much with against man, and then it was like, oh, well, he had trouble with zone sometimes. And I remember us talking last year and it was the Jalen Ramsey comments in years past, but it was like, we're going to make him a thrower. And he faced a lot of heavy boxes, you said. There were a lot of, defenses were daring him to throw. What will defenses maybe try and do this year? Because he proved that he can throw when you want him to become that passer.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest concern that I would have if I'm the Bills and Daboll this offseason is, defenses now have seen this. They didn't know what to expect heading into 2020. All of a sudden we come out 10 personnel, wide receivers all over the place, and we're throwing on first down. We're not trying to run the football. Every first down is a passing attempt. Okay, that'll work, especially catch these teams off guard. Now the defenses are like, okay, this is what's coming. So now what are you going to do? What are you countering that with? And if I'm a defense going up against Buffalo, I might consider lightening the box, right? Like daring them to run the football. We know they don't have a lot of confidence in their rushing attack. I don't want Josh Allen picking us apart with those 10 personnel passing. I'm going to sit back and I'm going to make them run the football. I'm going to go up with a light box. So what does Daboll do in that respect? What does Daboll do in terms of his play calls? Is he going to bow to that pressure and run the ball a little bit more? Or is he going to play like Andy Reid does with Patrick Mahomes? Be like, fine, we're going to throw different types of passes that are going to be able to attack your light boxes and try to get mismatches against some of your personnel that you maybe don't want to have out on the field, but you're only bringing them out on the football field to try to dare us to run, which we're not going to do. So, there's consistent things that Josh Allen needs to do. I think like I would be happy if there was some more checks at the line of scrimmage based upon what the defense is trying to throw at you. And also I can just tell you for certain that every team in the league is going to be dealing with the road environment that they didn't have to last year, where the crowd noise is going to be ridiculous. And if Daboll is trying to signal things into Josh in that play clock when he's close to the line of scrimmage, and then Josh is trying to relay that, it's going to be much more difficult to do with all that communication with a lot of crowd noise. So they're going to have to figure out ways to get that communication in quickly and with hand signals and other types of, potentially nonverbal communication.
That's so funny because we talked about how much of an how offenses were going to be able to have that advantage. And we felt like they did because defenses, last year kind of got burned, like points per game were up more. And it's funny now to be like going back to being like, oh yeah, crowd noise again. And it's like, it's not going to be fake again. And, we kind of, the Bills kind of saw it when they went to Arrowhead. Going off of that, what can the Bills do to improve the run? Because that is a big thing that was talked about. It was, were they going to draft a home run hitter like Brandon Beane said? And I give Brian Daboll credit because throughout this season, he had to answer so many questions about what's wrong with the running game. What's wrong with the running game? And Daboll was like, I'm trying zone. I'm trying stretch. Like it's not for lack of trying different things. Like, do you see something analytically that whether it's the continuity of bringing the 5 offensive linemen back or, some kind of where they were better to improve this run game?
Oh yeah. There are little things that you can do to improve the run game. Without digging too deep into the details, there are absolutely things, but the key for running the football in the NFL that's applicable to all the teams is you want to have a good line and you need to run when the situation is beneficial. And that's against light boxes, and that's also down inside the red zone. The huge edge that Buffalo has against other defenses is the fact that they have a quarterback who can run with the football himself. And so you need to figure out how to utilize Josh in the run game in high leverage situations, but even, because you don't want him just getting hurt by running the ball too much as a quarterback. But we know that running backs around the league get better when they work with a running quarterback. They have higher efficiency when they work with a running quarterback because defenses are always having to account for the running quarterback in those scenarios. And so I think making Josh more of a threat to run the football in some of these designed run plays, especially if they're going up against light boxes, would be a massive benefit to Buffalo this upcoming season. The key is you don't necessarily want him to run the ball often, but when the defense doesn't play him and he has that chance to run the football, those are going to be some big gains. So we don't just want Josh to be running the football when a pass play breaks down and he has an open run lane or, he's being flushed and there's pressure behind him and he can run with the football. We also need him to be more of a threat running the football on designed running back handoffs or plays that offer that dual threat capability.
That's great insight because I said one of my hot takes heading into this Bill season, I think Josh could lead the team in rushing. Now, and that may be even me. That's just more of a knock that I just don't have all the faith in Devin Singletary or Zach Moss. But we've seen Josh do it before. Now it's rare, but I just think, as you said before, he may see lighter boxes. I think Josh then can maybe use his legs more because he's shown now that he can use his arm to hurt defenses. So that's just kind of interesting that you say that when it's like, yeah, it's almost like it's funny for you to say you need Josh to run a little bit more. And it's like in years past, it was like, oh my God, Josh, just don't run, throw the ball. And it's that cat and mouse game. Like you're talking about that balance.
Yeah, you're not going to have, this is Daboll's offense now. You're not going to have a ton of run plays. You don't want to have a ton of run plays. Where you want to run the football is in the fourth quarter when you're up by multiple scores and you can kind of bleed the clock. That's when this offense wants to be running the football. That what they want to be doing when they're running it in the other 3 quarters is getting efficiency when they choose to run. Mostly they're going to be a pass offense when they choose to run, particularly on short yardage situations or just to keep the defense guessing. You need those runs to be somewhat productive. You can't get behind the 8 ball when you run the football, especially if defenses are daring you to do that a little bit more often. And so getting Josh a little bit more involved in that. Again, we don't want him to run the ball a ton. I don't know if I'd love it if he led the team in rushing yards. But you never know if that ends up happening as a byproduct of defenses not accounting for him well enough.
Right.
But that team needs to provide more of a threat on the ground besides just Singletary. And I think getting Moss a little bit healthier. I know he was banged up at the end of last season. Him being a little bit more healthy and providing a better 1-2 punch could also help.
I really appreciate the way that you respectfully said that was a dumb hot take that he'll lead the team in rushing. So I really respect that the way that you did it so politely.
I mean, it absolutely could happen, but if I'm Buffalo, I don't want that to happen. But it could. You never know.
Building off of what last season was, around Buffalo on social media, there was probably like 2 weeks during the middle of this offseason where it was, did Josh Allen make Stephon Diggs or did Stephon Diggs make Josh Allen? And it was this big conversation. Who came first, the chicken or the egg kind of thing. What should we expect for Stephon Diggs? Like what is realistic heading into year 2 here in Buffalo?
I mean, it's hard to say. He's WR1. He's going to get a lot of opportunities. You use him in a lot of different spots on the football field. You can put him in motion beforehand. And if you get him lined up in an optimal situation based upon using some of that motion or some of your route concepts, when you have multiple wide receivers out there, like, you're just going to keep going to him. It's like, if the defense can't stop it, why should we stop throwing it to him? And there have been a couple games last season where it's like he's racking up target after target because the defense just simply has not made their adjustments to take him away. And so take the easy money. Like you never go broke taking profit. When you're getting this upside with Diggs and he's in a matchup that he can exploit, why would you try to do something different? We know passes are more efficient than runs, and he's matched up with a guy he can exploit, take advantage of it. So as long as you've got a guy like that who's just a matchup nightmare and you're using him intelligently and it's the route concepts and it's the motion before the snap to isolate him in some, matchups that are to your advantage and plus CV before the ball's even snapped, then you got to go to him. I think that this offense in general, like, did he make Josh Allen? Did Josh Allen make him? I think it's hard to place like credit to one or the other. I think the whole thing, the whole machine was important. And obviously if Diggs got injured, like, this team is not going to be nearly close to their ceiling as they would be with him. And the same would be true if Josh got injured. Like, obviously it's easier to work around a guy like Diggs than it is to work around a guy like Josh if one of the two were to get injured, heaven forbid. But hopefully both stay healthy this year, and both are very valuable pieces to this offense.
A piece that seems to be, that they added, and Sean McDermott talked about losing your fastball. You never want to lose your fastball. The Bills cut John Brown this offseason. He was banged up. It's just kind of the life of the NFL. It's what have you done for me lately? The money issue. But they bring in a guy like Emmanuel Sanders. And I've been, the more I think about this, I know he's up there in age, but like, he still provides that ability to take the top off of defenses. And we saw what John Brown could do when healthy at getting beyond defenses, and Josh Allen, connecting on some deeper passes. I look at it, was Emmanuel Sanders maybe underutilized in the Saints offense just because of maybe Drew Brees' limitations with his arm at this point in his career?
Well, there were a lot of things that went wrong in New Orleans besides just, Drew Brees' arm and the health of other players. But what I will say is this, like, you talking about Emmanuel Sanders makes me happy because I love Emmanuel Sanders. I love this player. I'm going to just read the list of quarterbacks that have thrown him the football in the NFL in his entire career. You ready for this? Trevor Siemian, Case Keenum, Drew Brees for whenever Drew Brees was healthy, whatever his arm could give him, Jimmy Garoppolo, Joe Flacco, Paxton Lynch, Brock Osweiler, and Taysom Hill. Now, that's not his whole career, but that's the last 5 years. The point is that he has not had upper echelon quarterbacks or upper echelon play designers, although I love Sean Payton, and I do have a ton of respect, potentially my favorite offensive play designer ever in the NFL, at least currently. Sorry, I said forever, but I really love Kyle Shanahan. But like, I think that Emmanuel Sanders brings a ton of upside. If you talk to any of those coaches, whether it's Sean Payton or whether it's Kyle Shanahan, these guys rave about not just his ability to be precise and run good routes, but also his blocking down the football field when it's a run play or blocking for a quarterback who's getting out and trying to get yards with his feet. He's a great role model for some of the younger players. I love Emmanuel Sanders. I hope that he stays healthy. I was personally like shaken up. I did not like it when he tore his Achilles a couple of years back when he was in Denver. I'm so happy that he's healthy. And if he stays healthy this season for the Buffalo Bills, I think he definitely adds a different element than what John Brown did. I don't think he has necessarily that, like you said, like the ability to get behind the defense. I don't think he's going to do that quite as frequently in Buffalo. I don't know if that's what they're going to ask him to do, but I think he's going to be such a valuable piece to the puzzle, especially when you can play him off of the other receivers that you already have, which are very talented. I actually think it's an upgrade, even though I know John Brown was beneficial for you. If Sanders is healthy, I think he's an upgrade.
I was thinking the same. I thought the same exact thing. And I know a lot of people are excited about what Gabriel Davis did in his first season. And I just looked at it and I'm like, I think we're overlooking what Emmanuel Sanders can bring to this team. This was a guy too that Brandon Beane has wanted to get in a couple different times. He's wanted to get him in to Buffalo, and he ended up going to San Fran, and then it was New Orleans, like you said. So it's great to have him there. We look at the tight end. Is it just this offensive system doesn't benefit as much or use the tight end as much? Or is it because you have Stephon Diggs and Cole Beasley and you have that? Like, can Dawson Knox or a tight end in this system flourish? That's my question.
I don't know about flourish, especially when you look at what some of the other tight ends around the league are doing. I don't think he's going to be ever in that category in terms of he's not going to have the volume. He's not going to deliver enough inside of the red zone. You've got a quarterback who can run the football, keeps running, taking away rushing touchdown from the running backs. And also that takes away some rushing touchdowns from your receivers. This offense is designed to be unselfish. And that's why it's hard to say, well, what about Diggs and which came first? It's like this offense by its nature, by what Daboll is constructing here, is designed to be uber efficient. The plays have to be made when it's time to make them, and it's completely unselfish. We're all going to be happy when we score points. And I think Knox is a vital piece to the puzzle. I think he absolutely has a role. I think you can do different things with him. What was it in the game against the Chiefs where they scored that nifty touchdown to Dawson Knox, like the first touchdown that they scored, I think. There are things that you can do with Dawson Knox that are important and that you need a good tight end to do for you. But he's never going to be in contention with like high usage, massive impact, but he's going to play his role. And I think he does a really good job with his role. And I think utilizing him to find mismatches and edges on a weekly basis is going to be important. The thing that this offense needs to do when we are talking about defenses are going to make adjustments, defenses are going to counter you, they have a whole offseason to study your film on a week-to-week basis. What can you do offensively to counter what you think they're going to bring to you? And Dawson Knox may play more of a role this season than he did in years past, especially than he did last year, potentially, depending upon what opposing defenses do and how opposing defenses choose to play the Buffalo Bills. If they lighten everything up and drop back, then Dawson Knox absolutely could take advantage of some of those mismatches that he has on his route. So it's hard for me to say like what his role is going to be this year, but I do think that as an X factor, he's important.
It's just funny just because it seemed like some of the games the Bills lost, and as everybody says, the tight end is becoming such a vital part of some elite offenses in the NFL. And it was so funny, and it's like, like Kelsey, burns the Bills in the 2 games against Kansas City. And it's like, yeah, he's Travis Kelsey. Like not like if you don't have Kelsey, Kittle, or Waller, but those guys don't grow on trees. And to think that everybody like that the next tight end is going to take that step is very tough in my opinion to say that. So it's funny, it's when you talk about that X factor, I agree, because you just don't know what you're going to get and what defenses want you to take, right?
Yeah, you have to come up with a strategy. And some weeks it might be using the tight end more. And against what teams are going to do to counter this offense, there might be more opportunities. But you have to consider, the Kansas City Chiefs, they played a lot more in the past. They played a lot more 12 personnel. Last year, they played a lot more 11, but you still have a tight end out on the football field. They don't play nearly as much 10 as do the Bills. And, obviously with 10, you don't even have a tight end out there. So the pure opportunity is going to be low. But when he's out on the field or against certain defenses, there are going to be chances for him to make an impact that could be a difference in winning a game. And I think he's going to step up in those situations. And it's on Brian Daboll to design a week-to-week game plan that might use him more some weeks than others, depending on what we think that defense is going to do.
One last thing, I want to switch to the defense just for two quick questions, because you always look at this analytical side and you can tell, and it was so funny when you said about running the football, and you're like, you don't really want to run the football. I have bought into what you preach so much of everybody's like, well, Josh is throwing the ball too much. Have him throw it 57 times. If it works, it works. That was this team. It fed off Josh Allen last year. But you always talk to you too. You're like, you want to run the ball in the fourth quarter. It's situationally. And I look at sometimes with pass rushing numbers and sack numbers. Sometimes those can be situationally when teams are going to throw the ball and you're ahead, you can get more sacks. It doesn't necessarily mean you have the best sack rusher or pressure. It's situationally sacks come. Will the Bills have more opportunity, or do you see things that were there that they can capitalize on more as they continue to, hopefully build this team that puts up points and makes teams throw the football more?
Yeah, I think that will be the case. When you have the lead, offenses are going to have to pass the ball more. So your pass defense is going to be stretched out more. And we know it's easier for other teams to pass against you. But the key is that's a situation you want to be in when you know that team is going to pass. From a defensive perspective, when the offense can run or pass, it's tough to play defense. But when you have that team in third and long, they're going to be passing the ball. When you are up by 14 in the fourth quarter, they're going to be passing the ball. It's much easier to play defense in those situations. That's why winning on early downs and then having a lead at halftime is so vital to make life easier on your defense. Now, interestingly enough, two GMs that I really respect, Brandon Beane and Chris Ballard, both had the similar approach, at least what they walked away from the draft. I don't think either guy goes into the draft necessarily saying, this is what we're going to do with our second pick for sure. They let the board come to them a little bit. Both these guys are smart. That's what happens. But both guys went D-end with the first two picks of the draft. The Colts did and the Bills did, to try to address a need that they had, and thinking that we've got a really good team. We like our chances. We made the playoffs last year. What is one area of weakness that we want to improve? It's our pass rush. Let's make sure that we address that early in the draft and don't just take one guy in case he doesn't end up working out, or maybe he's a slow learner, or maybe he takes a little bit of time to grow into the offense. We might want to roll the dice and get two guys in here and have better odds that we're going to make an impact early in the 2021 football season. So I think that they made some moves in the offseason to try to help address that pass rush. I think they're going to have opportunities to utilize these guys. And to your point, if you're leading games, you're going to have more pass attempts against you. You're going to have more pass rushes. That's why you might need more pass rushers to kind of cycle these guys in and keep them a little bit more fresh later in the game as these attempts rack up against you.
I always think that, for a couple of years, it was the Saints and the Chiefs led all of these categories with sacks. And everybody's like, oh, they have the best pass rush. I was like, well, they're also scoring 35 points a game and teams are having to throw the ball. So defensive ends can pin their ear back and don't have to worry about some draw being run on them or something like that. So I always pump the brakes and everyone's like, you need to get more pressure on the quarterback. It's like, get a lead and you can probably get more pressure on the quarterback. You talk about analytics. Obviously I always think it's so funny because we also try and peg around here how much Star Lotulelei may have meant to this team. And obviously I don't know if there's a number, if there's a thing. He has a ton of respect in the locker room. Even Josh Allen said that when he speaks, and he doesn't speak often, it really carries some weight. What can you maybe predict or see coming with Star Lotulelei back? Does that just help everybody on the front seven?
It does. I mean, if he comes back and is in the similar form that we saw when he last was playing, absolutely. I mean, he can be a difference maker on the defense. It's about a consistent presence and then a couple step up plays, right? We know offenses tend to be the driving mechanism to winning or losing games. But if you have the right personnel that can tweak what that offense has to do, or now they have to game plan and they don't like a matchup here and they choose to do something a little bit less EV because they're working around personnel that you have, that's always a benefit, because game planning and what coaches do in the week leading up to that game does play such a factor in what ends up happening in the game. I mean, look, this is a player-driven league, and at the end of the day, the players are the ones who are going to get the credit. But like the game plan and the ability to design a good game plan goes a long way towards making life easier on your players and making them shine out on the football field. And so if you can make life a little bit more cumbersome for that opposing OC as he's game planning for your defense by having a piece like Star Lotulelei in there, it's going to make a difference. Now, in terms of, you know, the general factor, if you can use him to get a little bit of pressure on those pass plays, help clog things up on run plays, and when you have those leads, you know, the defense gets more, or sorry, the opposing offense has to pass the ball more. So, you know, it's just a positive thing to have him there. We also know that running inside of the red zone is some of the most efficient time to run. There's two times that are going to be the most efficient to run the ball: short yardage and inside the red zone. And so his presence there could absolutely help your ceiling a lot this upcoming season. And I'm excited about the DNs that you got as well. I think we saw more pressure on the offense last year, in part because the defense took a step back. And it was something that I wasn't necessarily expecting heading into the season. And I'm looking forward to seeing this defense get a little bit back on track to what we've seen the prior several years. And you pair that with an offense that continues to grow and develop and hopefully has answers for the changes that opposing defenses bring to your offense. And I think you've got a super well-rounded football team.
I always was saying last year that there were going to be times where the offense was going to have to step up. The defense had been so good for so long under Sean McDermott and Leslie Frazier. And I said, there are going to be games where the defense just gets beat. It's a good offensive game plan by the opposing team. They give up 30 points. You have to be able to score 33 or 35. And all of a sudden we started to see that happening. And then we were kind of going back to Sean McDermott, like, what's wrong with the defense? And they were like, it's early. And they did start to play better towards the back half of the season, but it definitely took some time. Warren, I appreciate your time. I said 10 minutes. We've gone 25. So that's a little trick of mine. But I really appreciate it. Again, follow him at Sharp Football on Twitter, as well as sharpfootballanalysis.com, his 2021 football preview book. Everybody's got it. You can download the PDF. Adam Schefter was reading it. Diana Rossini was reading it. Everybody that is smart about football reads and downloads that book. So I really appreciate you coming on here, man.
Hey, thanks for having me, Dan. Excited to see your coverage of the Bills this training camp, and so glad that we got football back